Hey, this is Jeremy Schulz, aka the Wandering Monk, and you are listening to the Awakened Nation podcast.
A huge shift is taking place on planet Earth. People seem to be waking up. Tired of the way things used to be, they are creating something brand new and changing the world we live in. My name is Brad Zales, and I get to sit down with the next generation of idea makers, the disruptors, and the game changers. Everyday people, just like you and me, from all over, who are doing amazing things. Welcome to Awakened Nation.
Hey, everybody. I have an extraordinary guest on today. Jeremy, welcome to Awakened Nation, my friend.
Hey, thank you, Awakened Nation. Thank you so much.
You got it. Ladies and gentlemen, you're going to be blown away by this guy. He is also known as the Wandering Monk. And does that sound mysterious? Sort of like an anime cartoon, where this guy just gets up and says, "That's it. I'm not going to live here. I'm going to just walk across the nation." And that's exactly what he did. But I had to have you on the show today, Jeremy, simply because our good friend Damon Lemby told me about your extraordinary ability to teach people how to play the drums. And I'm a drummer, so I got to know all about this. And he also founded Beats from the Core. So we're just going to have fun today. And officially, Jeremy, welcome to the show.
Hey, man, thank you so much for having me. Fellow drummer. All right, man, I'm stoked on that.
So let's talk about your journey of 3,100 miles. What made you just say, you know what, screw this, I'm going on a walk?
Wow. Well, so I have a book and a documentary coming out because the circumstances that led to my walk across America were actually pretty extraordinary. So much so that I had to write a book about it. It wasn't anything that's been like a lifelong dream or nothing. I was living in New York City, and I woke up one day, and I felt so absolutely empty. Backtrack a little bit. I've been a professional touring drummer for well over 20 years. Toured the world. I was at the right place at the right time. I was part of the Seattle grunge scene. Got up to Seattle I got up to Seattle, dude, in 1995. Okay. So yeah, right in the heart of it. And instantly I grew up in Northern California, in Redding, California, where I am right now, put my drones in the back of my truck after high school and drove up to Seattle, started living my dream. And I really did, man. I was able to accomplish everything. Right. I worked hard, started out with little gigs, and then next thing you know, I'm playing bigger shows. And then I got introduced to teaching at the Seattle Drum School, legendary place, Seattle Drum School. Wow. The owner's name is Steve Smith, and he mentored me, and then he taught me how to teach, and that really changed the whole trajectory of my life, being able to feel the feeling of giving back, and then I started going on big tours, and started getting pretty successful, living the rock star lifestyle. And then one day it all caught up with me, after years of like I said, I did the thing, man. I'd go out on the road. I'd go out on the road for months and months and months and come back and, hey, I was touring. I'd be like, I can't remember, right? Too much partying. Yeah. And so I was married. I had a stepson and everything, and I was out on the road, and everything just in one day, my whole life crashed down upon me, right? I got a text on my phone that said divorce, flew home, and everything was gone. I had 2 side businesses that I had created. Everything was gone. I lost my house. I lost everything. So that was in 2016. And then at that point, I took off and I started traveling the world. I just needed to get my head about me. And so I went to Thailand. And when I was in Thailand, there was a guy named Toon Body Slam. Kind of funny sounded name, right? Toon. Yeah. And he was a singer for a heavy metal band. And this guy, he was all over the national news. He had decided, for whatever reason, to run all the way across Thailand from the very bottom up to the top. And he was doing it to raise money, yeah, for Children's Hospital. And it was really captivating, and just his spirit was I was suffering really bad. I had God, you could probably imagine how sad I was. You know, my stepson wasn't, he's not my biological son, so I had zero rights. So he just like disappeared, and that felt like a death to me. He'd been with me since he was 6 months old until 11. So I was pretty wounded, and watching Toon run across his nation and be filled with so much joy. It was like I had no joy playing drums. There was no joy anywhere, and I would gleam onto that, and it was electrifying. And so it was always in the back of my mind. I came back to the U.S., drove my van around, wound up in New York City, and I'm like, I have to get back out to work. So I was doing gigs and like that, and I woke up one day and I was like, New York it's beautiful, it's awesome, it's the loneliest place on the planet. That many people, and it's so dang lonely. It's yeah. So I woke up one day and I was like, I'm never going to play drums again. And I decided, I called up one of my best friends and I said, hey, this sounds crazy, but I'm going to walk home. And he's like, what are you talking about? Like, I'm going to walk home. I'm going to walk back. I'm going to walk to Reading. Wow. And he's like, you've lost your mind. I was like, I probably have. So, make a really long story short, I gave away, I gave up my New York City apartment. I gave away all my drums. Dude, I had a snare drum that Matt Cameron used on all the Pearl Jam and Soundgarden albums. Okay. Wow. One of one, right? I had stacks of cymbals, every single thing that I owned. All right. I gave away, and I had a 52-pound backpack on. And my friend was really concerned. He was really concerned about my walk because I had no plan or nothing. And this sounds a little morbid, but I want to be able to speak the truth here. I was planning on just walking and kind of disappearing. Right. My best friend was like, Jeremy, I want you to tie this to something. So that way, you can have interaction, tie this to a charity. So I reached out. I heard Justin Wren from Fight for the Forgotten. He was on Joe Rogan's show, and he's talking about their anti-bullying campaign, and you'll see how this all ties around the anti-bullying, and like growing up with stuttering and Tourette's and all of this. I was like, man, that's something that I could really get behind. So I emailed him and I said, hey, I'm going to walk across America. I would love to help raise money for your anti-bullying campaign. And he called me and he was like, what? You're going to do what? So April 22nd, 2019, I took my first step off the Brooklyn Bridge. And I took my first step into the great unknown. I had a 52-pound backpack, and I decided right at the last minute that I was going to I was going to go out of my way. I didn't want to leave New York without seeing Niagara Falls. So I walked 500 miles out of my way up to Niagara Falls first. And then that started the confidence and everything. And I'll tell you, I had all these adventures on the way up there. And fast forward, I ended up finishing my 3,100 mile walk, made it to Redding, California, October 22nd or October 19th, 2019. And I had raised $10,500 for the anti-bullying campaign.
Wow.
Yeah.
What a story. And you went 500 miles out of your way to see Niagara Falls.
Here was my route. I walked off of the bridge. I went up to Niagara Falls. I scaled Lake Erie, and then I came down into through Pennsylvania, then into Ohio, and then I went into Indiana, where I got caught in a flood, which took all my gear, almost lost my life, had somebody come down and save me. I fell off a 40-foot cliff. I got lost in the forest for 4 nights by myself. And then I kept going, and I walked. The foundation was in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. So I walked more out of my way, and I walked down to Oklahoma City. And then from Oklahoma City, I walked, I walked all the way through the Panhandle, started going northwest, right? And then went over the Rocky Mountains, and then went across the Utah Salt Flats, went through the Nevada low desert, the Nevada high desert, where I actually bear maced myself and walked for 3 days with bear mace all over me. And then made it. So that was my route, kind of zigzagged.
Wow. Talk about a walkabout, as the Australians say. Wow.
Right.
It's a zigzag. What a story. Hey, I'm going to show, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to show Jeremy's trek real quick. Here are some excerpts from his YouTube channel and his documentary. Roll the tape.
With one self-inflicted bear mace spray to the face, dry, cracked, and bleeding feet, a near broken ankle, and 2 very sore knees, the pain that I bear throughout this walk has become the gateway to the enlightenment that has been bestowed upon me during this journey so far. The most amount of enlightenment resides on the other side of extreme pain, isolation, and discomfort. It is there that you can fully submit and give yourself to the flow state of existing as a spiritually led being. When the pain and discomfort breaks you down so much so that you all but die a literal death, and you release all that you carry, you end up with nothing left. Nothing except an empty shell. You're like an empty, dry cup waiting to be filled with abundance. You no longer have worldly objects or worldly influence to rely on. And when you rely on nothing is when, by the force of all natural law, you become a spiritual being.
When I got done with my walk, Justin Wren, the professional UFC fighter who owns the foundation, he and I went down to LA and we did a bunch of press, and we're on Rogan and stuff like that. So I've got those. Yeah, I've got those clips of him and Joe Rogan talking all about my walk, and then we went and visited. Then there was this TV program called SEAL Team CBS, and they'd followed my walk, and so they wanted to meet me, and so that was pretty cool.
This is extraordinary, man, because we're in a day and age where people are now starting to talk about depression and loss and trauma. And this is a beautiful way, and it's extreme. I don't know anybody else who has done this, but to take action in that moment of grief, to literally stand up and go, you know what? I don't have all the effing answers in life, man. I don't have them. And until I get them, I'm just going to go do this. And so I take my hat off to you for that, because we don't talk enough about mental illness and depression amongst men in this day and age. So thank you. You are a shining beacon.
Oh man,
to this, brother.
Oh man,
thank you.
Hey, man, dude, thank you so much. Listen, man, I'll tell you one thing. This walk, it's funny. I'm speaking on the Awaken Nation podcast, and talk about going through a complete awakening. I was not, I was barely spiritual, but before my walk, as a matter of fact, I was convinced, being in the industry that I was playing, dark, heavy metal, grunge music, being in all of that, I was shrouded around a lot of darkness. Right. Yeah. And that was my world. Being on this walk, I spiritually died and completely became reborn. I found God, and this isn't a you know, my I'm not about to go on a diatribe and tell everybody what they should do. This was just my experience. I completely found God. I was in the I started having a conversation with God, like being isolated that long, when you get rid of all worldly objects, you get this connection to source in a way that you would never know, right? As a matter of fact, let me tell you this, man. I had never read the Bible. I didn't know anything, and every time the wind would blow, I would hear what I thought was like a voice, and I would start having this conversation, and I would write down on my journal. The wind made this sound, and it had a very particular sound, and I hear sound, because I'm a drummer, right? We hear sound.
You hear rhythm. We hear rhythm.
Yeah. Our windshield wipers will be like,
right, exactly.
So when wind blows, and to me the sound was Yahweh. I wrote down the word Yahweh. I had never read the Bible. I didn't even know that was a real word. Okay. And so I was talking to Jim and Susan, who helped run the foundation for Fight for the Forgotten. And I told them that, and they were like, Jeremy, God is speaking to you. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And they're like, Yahweh. And I was like, there's no way that what? Like, that's just a word that came. Well, they told me that before I got to Oklahoma. And I had this very traumatic experience in Oklahoma. I had my phone had died, and I routed the wrong route. My phone had died, and I was on this road, and the blacktop had disappeared. And I'm not allowed to walk on the freeway, so I'd go on a alternate road. And this road, it was going to be about a 5 to 6 day walk into town. And I was on day 4. And after day 1, I had ran out of water. So I was about almost 70 hours without water. And I thought that I was going to die. It was 92 degrees. My kidney had popped out. I had peed like almost like this glue. I had 1 can of sardines, and I thought that I was literally thought that I was going to die. So I wrote on my thing. I wrote my stepson this letter, and for the first time in my life, I got on my knees and I prayed. I actually prayed to God for some water, and I said, "Listen, if you're real, I just want to ask you to reveal yourself and hook a brother up with some water, please." Right. And then I passed out, and this is the story. I woke up, and I thought, and I heard like this, like what sounded like a vehicle. And I looked, and way down, you can see like the gas coming from the dirt road and stuff. And I looked, and sure enough, there was this truck. Well, 20 minutes later, this lady rolls up, and it was this male lady. And she was like, what? She's like, what are you doing out here? And she's like, you're the dude walking across America. I was all over the press and everything. And I was like, do you have any water? And she had some water in the back of her thing. She was like, listen, she goes, I'm a male lady. I've had the same route for 20 years. She's like, I've never driven down this road. Like, this is an alternate road, but I've never taken this road into town. I don't know why I even took it today. She's like, I just did. I have no reason. And so I said, can I get a ride into town? She said, well, I can't give you a ride, but I can't stop you from sitting in on the tailgate of my truck. And so I sat, so she drove it, and she drove down on the rest of the road, and I'm drinking the water, and my mind is blown. I'm like, I prayed.
She gave you water?
Yeah, it was hot. It was hot as heck. And she had bottled water in a ice chest that that she had. Yeah.
Wow, that saved your life, man.
And so and she drives me into town, and she drops me off, and she said, "Hey, there's a hotel right there. Get a room. Tell them you know me. Blah blah blah." Give me a big hug. She's like, "Yeah, keep going." And so I go in to that hotel. I was like, "Man, I almost died out there." And so they were like, yeah, man, we're gonna hook you up with the room. And I started telling them about the mail lady, and they looked at me. They're like, yeah, we don't know anything. We don't even know mail lady. What are you talking about? They're like, yeah, whatever. And so that tripped me out. So I, you know, I don't really
Wow.
know what the deal was with that. But after that, man, I started getting all of this strength and power, and I started getting this all of this wisdom, and just I was like a conduit, and I was just writing, and all this stuff started coming into me, and I started hearing about like how the road always provides, and you got to walk down the road, and no matter what, just stay on the road, and everything will provide. And then I started. While I was walking, I would imagine rebuilding my life into a whole different type of man, and I wanted to be a sober man. I wanted to be I wanted to be a good husband. I wanted to be a boss and a leader and yada yada. And I started conversating with God, and I asked him like, "Hey, am I supposed to play drums again?" And he's like, "Listen, you are supposed to teach people the way of the wandering monk. You're supposed to teach people the way, and you're going to do that through rhythm and through your body." And I didn't know what the body meant. And now, fast forward 4 years later, my wife and I opened up. I'll tell you about how I got remarried. That's a trip too. We opened up Beats from the Core Drum School as a way to be able to serve the community, transform lives, and impact communities through drum lessons. And then I got into bodybuilding, and I started at 50 years old. I won my very first bodybuilding competition.
Wow.
And and now I do online training for men over 40, and get them off of drugs and alcohol, and get them completely shredded, and everything. So I wake up every single day right now aligned with my purpose. I don't even have to think about what I'm going to do. I wake up, slam coffee, go work out, and I'm on purpose 24/7. That is it. That's my gift.
God bless you, brother. That is one
Thank
heck of a story, man. Woo.
Thank you, man. Thank you.
Yeah. Wow. Hey, everybody, go to beatsfromthecore.com and check it out. Help this cause. I love it.
Thanks,
Yeah. Damon Lemby introduced us, and he said, I believe it was his daughter. You gave his daughter drum lessons. Was that correct?
Yeah, they had came into town. I'm they're in the Bay Area. I'm about 3 hours north. I believe Damon's wife is from Redding here. This is a great little community. And they wanted to do an activity for his daughter. So they signed her up for a drop-in lesson. And I created this thing called Tribe, where we put a whole bunch of drums in one room, and I teach people how to basically like a drum ensemble, but with drumsticks and like floor toms and rack toms and drum sets. And everybody's like, "I don't know how to play drums," and I'm like, "That's great, you will today." It's easy. You count to four and know your right hand and your left hand. I can teach you how to play drums, right? Right. And so, his daughter showed up. She was feeling a little shy. So I said, "Hey, whole family, let's come in here. I have all the drums set up." And I put on a track, and I said, the whole family is gonna play. And they did. The Damon, his wonderful wife, his daughter, their other kid, and then myself. And we had the drums set up in a big circle and floor toms like that. And I had like this track that repeated, and we got together 45 minute class. And it felt like, I mean, when it was over, they're like, "Oh my God, how," and it was, I guided it, and it was just a rhythmic piece. And it just felt great. They forgot when people do this, you forget about time, you forget about the messiness of the world, you forget about everything. You're just in harmony with with the natural force, which is rhythm.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about this because you and I have that in common. And I always, I'm a fifth generation drummer in my family. My grandfather played for the big bands, and my great grandfather, Henry Bowers, he played drums on the battlefield in the Civil War to give commands to the Northern troops. They used rhythm because that's all you could hear with the cannon and the drum. Yeah. And so I actually have my great grandfather's drum from that Civil War era, the 1800s, and his drumsticks. So there is, you can become a drummer, but for a lot of us, I believe we're born with that rhythm. It's in our soul. Nothing else attracts us. Like I always thought, oh, maybe I could become a jazz trumpet player. No, when you viscerally, drumming is my soul. So I want to talk to you about this. How did this all start? This love of drumming, this fascination with it, and now today you're teaching it, and you have your own system. How did it all start for you, Jeremy?
Man, I'm happy that you asked me this question, because how drumming started for me is, I believe, a lot different than most people. And this, it is the how it started. My how and my why ended up being 43 years into drumming later, ended up becoming the core foundation of what we do here at Beats from the Core. Okay. And I developed a teaching system that relies on 4 core principles, and I'll talk about those in a second. And you'll see how this all comes around. When my mom got me started in drumming when I was really young, man, I had insane Tourette's and stuttering. I mean, so bad, like and then I would hit the bottom of my foot. I blinked really bad. I said the word Huey. I don't know. I've got no idea. When you Tourette's, you say weird stuff, right? Yeah. Over and over and over again. And I was like, blinking my eyes. And you got to think like this, there was no internet, right? There was this, like, imagine growing up in like a small, cowboy town. You got long hair down to here. You blink and twitch and stutter, and you're like, but people are like, what the heck's with this guy, right? So my mom, she's always been into like naturopathic medicine and stuff like that. She's been a yogi her whole life. And she was like thinking, she's like, man, Jeremy needs something to stimulate his brain. So she got me behind a drum set at a really early age, like 9 years old. And I got behind the drum set. One of the things that was that I struggled with so much was when I would be at school, I couldn't just have conversations. Like I would listen to kids at school talk to each other. Hey, blah, blah, blah. You're like, even tease each other, make fun of each other. For me to have a conversation, it's like, right? So I would sit behind the drums, and I didn't get behind the drums and was like, this is awesome, I'm going to make music. I sat down behind the drums and I pretended like they were kids at school, and the snare drum was me and the toms were everybody else. And I would sit back there for hours and I would have conversations. I would be like, hey, what's up? Oh, dude, hey, Jeremy, blah, blah. And then I was like, dude, everybody's talking to me. And it made me feel really good. And so I had so I told you that I'm going to tell you about my 4 core teaching principles. So I established a connection. Okay. So I would get back behind my drums, and then I would do that. And then all of a sudden I had a discovery. Whoa, this drum, you play this drum and this drum. That's weird. That's like an actual song. That's like a rhythm, boom, boom, boom. Right. So then I would be like, hey, I would come up with my own kind of like phrases and stuff like that. Then I'm empowerment. And then all of a sudden that turned into a transformation where that became my go-to. And I did that so much that I didn't care about school. I didn't care about anything. fast forward, I get into high school, and then I start getting into music, man. I start hearing Iron Maiden and all of this stuff, and you find out that, you start to get popular because you play in music, right? And
drummers are looked at differently than the rest of the band.
Yeah. And so then I started being able to feel heard and seen, right? Because I still stuttered. I still had that. So then that's when I fell in love with musician side of it, right? Starting to become a musician and stuff like that. So I totally fell in love with drumming, started playing in a band. And then that ignited a whole thing that became my whole entire identity, right? Graduated high school. Like I said, I went up to Seattle, and started my career. And this is a big part of my book that I talk about, was when I stepped off the Brooklyn Bridge on my walk. I was 46 years old, and my question was, my entire identity was drumming. That is it. That's it, man. That's all I've ever done. That was my job for 20 some odd years. I practiced 6-7 hours a day. I was a teacher, drums. My question was, I just gave all my drums away. I did everything. I'm no longer a drummer. Who am I? Who at 46 years of age, I have no identity, right? You'll have to read the book, but I've discovered who I am, and how that relates to drumming and everything. So that's kind of where it all started up for me. Like I said, this kind of a unique approach. So when we started the drum school, I decided that there's all these schools all across America, and it's good. I'm not this is a great model, but most schools really focus on like, hey, people are going to come in here. We're going to build really awesome musicians, right? My kid get to leave from here and maybe go to Berkeley or LA Music Academy and all of that, and that's fine. I decided I was going to build a school pretty much for the people. And I wrote a 120-page teaching curriculum for anybody who, I have a couple of employees that I hired, anybody who wants to teach here. And we go through my 4 core teaching principles. So instead of, I like to say that this is a people building facility disguised as a drum school. And we use the 4 core principles of connection, discovery, empowerment, and transformation for every drum lesson that is taught. And we just happen to use drums as the vehicle in which to employ those. So I actually invite people who maybe don't even know that they like drums, or maybe they're like, I invite almost all the non-drummies to come here, and something magical happens. There's a teaching technique that we use to get them to the connection, and then they start to discover, and then they feel empowerment, and then next thing you know, they're like just thriving, and they're transformed, and it's impacting community, parts of our community all outside of us, and it's creating it's creating micro community within itself, and everything. So that's all of that came from the discovery of how and why I started. Isn't that a trip?
That's an amazing trip. I love how you talked about how you figured out how to communicate through drumming. I think that's incredibly powerful for a young man struggling with Tourette's and stuttering. My hat's off to you, man. You've had God winks through your whole life,
right?
Where you figured it out for yourself. You figured out a lot of things on the road by listening. This is a powerful story. Your life is kind of a testament to survival, to listening, to rhythm, to life. But my favorite thing about drumming is it's visceral. Anybody can do it. I've actually drummed on my body, and then years later, I find out that's a healing technique. It's tapping.
Wow.
Yeah. And I my heart would be the bass. and then sometimes I'd have all my other percussion instruments throughout. Boom.
Yeah.
And everybody used to make fun of me of it, but I loved it. It was a lot of fun. I have to tell you a story. I might cut this out of the show, but I had a drum teacher named Bob Ganter. And Bob, he used to give private lessons for rudimental drumming. So my dad would drive me there every Saturday, like at 10:30, 11 o'clock. I had 11:30 lesson, and we'd go till noon, and then that was it. Well, through the years, he would teach me for a long time, and I didn't know this, but he had cancer. He had really bad cancer back in a day when, we're talking the 60s and the 70s. Nobody knew what that was, and he kept it very quiet. Well, I didn't know this, but he got rid of all of his students except for me.
Wow.
And I found out it was because I had the most potential. And this brings a tear to my eye. But I remember years later, I wound up in my high school drum line. I became captain of the drum line, and I went to his house, and we sat down together, and I showed him my sheet music, and we played it together note for note. And it touched me because it was like he was the master, and I now had become a master as well. And so there was that moment where we were playing together. But here's the most important part of the story. I had been in a lot of different bands, and for some reason, I guess around 18 or so, I just got way too busy, Jeremy, to play. And so one day I said, I got to get downstairs and play my set. And I got down, and I had bought this Tama set when they first came out, and I worked my ass off to get that set. And so I'm sitting there, and I'm playing, and I'm beating the drums, and I'm just having a good time and getting down some new rhythms and things like that. And my grandfather had told me, check out these Afro-Cuban rhythms. He was always into that stuff. And I just said to myself, I wish Bob Ganter, my teacher, could see me now. And the weirdest thing happened. I felt like he was standing right there in the room in the basement watching me play and smiling. And I thought, wow, that's a weird feeling. And I'm just having fun. And I stop all of a sudden, and I hear my mother go, Bradley. And the tone of her voice wasn't angry. It was sadness. I could hear it. She calls me upstairs. I come up to the top of the stairs, and my dad, my mom are standing there, and they said, we just got word that Bob Ganter, Mr. Ganter died. And I said, I know, Mom. I know. Wow. And so he had just died, like while I was playing drums, he had died. And I truly feel his soul had been standing there with me. So thank you. I've never shared that with anybody, but I wanted you to know.
Isn't that amazing, right? And that's the thing about being a teacher slash mentor is the unknown impact that you have on people's lives.
It's so true. And I mean, the fact that Damon told me that his daughter was so lit up by that and your teaching technique that he saw you do, he said, you got to get Jeremy on your show, Brad, because this had such a huge impact on his family and his daughter. And it's a testament to you, my friend. It really is.
Wow. Thanks. Wow. Thank you. It was like, I realized during my walk that teaching, that drum teaching was it was the missing. It was what I always wanted. It's what being in a band started out being, like that connection and that giving away, right? And then as you get bigger and bigger in the industry, and you have to start paying your bills, it's like that core element of what makes music and the relationship with musicians and the audience and the give and take, all of that has a potential to dissipate, right? And now you're worried about getting paid, right? Dude, and you got I was living in over by Bellevue, Washington, dude, so and had like fancy car and stuff like that. So it was like, man, I needed this big gig and that big gig and this blah blah blah, dude, and like that. And it's almost like the magic and the sacredness of that goes away. And then all of a sudden, life crashes down, and then it's almost like you go completely back to basics and really understand the fundamentals. Like, this is what it's about. Oh, it's not about, the playing the big stadiums and all that. That's almost insignificant by being able to do this old school style of teaching. I noticed, check this out. I noticed you have Kempo Jiu-Jitsu first degree black belt back there. I was in martial arts for years. I used to do Kaiju Kimbo. Right. Yeah. And so my instructor told me something that I've always thought about, and he said, he would be teaching me, and he would be like, Jeremy, stop. He would be like, do you know what the definition of a black belt is? I'm like, yeah, man, the black belt, that's the top of the top. And he's like, no, he's like, stop. That's not the definition of a black belt. So the definition of a black belt is the master of the basics.
Yes.
Right there. I was like, wow. He said, that's like, you're a master beginner. Yeah. Right now, exactly. It's like, boom, black belt. Now you're a master at the beginning. So you're still at the very, 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 very bottom, but now you've mastered it. So now you get to go to step 2. And I thought about that on my walk, because, I was going to achieve, oh man, I'm mastering my drumming and my calling and blah, blah, blah. I'm playing big stadiums and going on tour and blah, blah. And then all of that comes crashing down. Everything kind of slows down. And now, just being like, living a life of service and impacting people and impacting communities and being like that. I finally got my black belt after all of these years. Isn't that something?
It's true.
No drums required.
It is so true. Everybody thought, when I earned my black belt, it was a 4.5 hour test.
Wow.
And they're like, oh, well, now you're whatever. And I said, imagine going to college. You go through high school, pre-med, college, and you want to be a surgeon. And you graduate. I said, are you a surgeon yet? No, you have to go and now work at a hospital and learn from better surgeons. I said, that's the equivalent of getting a black belt. I said, love it. I've got all the training. Now, how do you put it together? And that's, you said it. You finally arrived. And what's the best thing about mastery? I think the best thing about mastery is you now have the basics. And like a great musician who goes over all the notes and the scales every morning to warm up, it's kind of the same thing. We've got the base, and now we pass it on. That I believe is the joy of the art of everything we do. Yeah.
Isn't that wonderful? And do you still play in bands, and do you still play?
But I do play. I keep my chops up. I did a TED Talk, which I opened with drumming and talked about how I learned to play the drums. And then I taught my nephew, but my nephew is a better drum set trap player than I am because of a video game called Rock Band. And so Sebastian, I taught him, I told him you can learn from every drummer. So I would introduce him to Gene Krupa, from the big band era. I would introduce him to Steve Porcaro and Jeff Porcaro, of Toto, and how he would use Bo Diddley style rhythms in rock and roll. And I said, you can learn from everybody. And he, Neil Peart, he would practice, all the Rush songs on Rock Band. I thought that was hilarious. Wow. Yeah, different generation, man.
Yeah. These it is a different generation. The most fantastic teacher that we have right now is a 19-year-old kid, and he is just amazing. I actually saw him play at church. We were here at this great church here in Reading called the Stirring, and I saw this kid back there just absolutely I'm I'm a professional drummer. This is what I've done my whole life, and my mind is blown. And everybody is like worshiping and everything, and I'm like
watching the drummer.
I'm like almost having an anxiety attack, and like that. My wife and I'm like, "Did you say that?" She's like, "Hey, come on,
relax.
We're worshiping right now," and I'm like, "What? I don't even know what's going on." And ended up talking with him afterwards, and we're the only drum school in Reading, and I've had all these people want to teach here, but I require that they write 2 paragraphs based on our mission statement, which is to impact communities and transform lives and impact communities through drum lessons, one beat at a time, and their view on that. And so that's where the interview stops, man, because everyone's like, I'm not doing that, right? And so this kid gave me like 2 pages full and blah blah blah, and then I taught him how to teach and taught him that, and now he's got 45 students a week, and he's just and he didn't even know that he knew how to teach. I just did that, but yeah, and so my point is like, this newer generation coming in, that's what I love about drums, is because the actual drum set is a new enough instrument where it's still, people are still innovating in it, like at a rapid pace, right? I've always loved really solid too, because I grew up in that. I just have such a love for the grunge Seattle era. I've always just loved that, the Alice in Chains, just
that throaty, bang it out.
Man. I love that. And now I see this new generation, their interpretation of playing straight is like, they play completely straight in 7 behind, like with ghost notes everywhere, and my mind is like, I'm like, how did that even evolve? And it's beautiful. I love it. I love it.
I swear to God, they have reincarnated from some place where this is all they're doing. I swear.
Right. Yeah. It is incredible. I know there's there's that one kid on Instagram, Grayson. Oh, I forget his last name, but he, he's like 17 years old, and he's playing. He has on YouTube, he has like a video split, and he's playing note for note Buddy Rich solos, like traditional style and everything. And he's got like little AirPods in, like.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I'm just playing Buddy Rich.
Grayson
New Kretman or something like that.
Yeah, New Kretman. Yeah. Wow, that's great. I saw Buddy Rich when I was 16, man. So I got to tune into that.
Yeah. Oh,
he's cool.
He's phenomenal. So
what are some of the bands you've played for? You've played for some pretty big names, from what I understand.
Yes and no. I mean, I've played for mostly bands that knew how to keep busy, and pay the bills. I've mostly been able to share the stage in the recording studio with really big names, right? But there's a legendary band up in Seattle called the Oswald Effect. I actually did their last album, and we're going to be putting it out. The bass player was one of my dear friends, and unfortunately, he didn't make it out of that party scene that we're in. He didn't make it out alive, so we buried him last year. And so we're going to be releasing that album, or that'll be in 2024, and that's legendary. I mean, they were one of Soundgarden's most favorite Seattle bands of all time. Like they're just incredible. They were called the Oswald Effect. But I played for the really big band up there is a band called Mother Crone, 3-piece. Grunge kind of heavy metalish style band, has toured all over the place, and then I played in a band called Barbie Car, and a band called Only Human, and then I actually did this. I had this really unique thing happen where I would get hired so like drummers would drop off on tour, and I would go fly out and just jump on their tour and you know, sit in and play, and that was cool because you know, you could. I would get paid like whatever, you know, the band was kind of in a bind, you know, so you kind of twist the knob a little bit and say, well, yeah, I can show up, it'll cost this much, and then you get paid and you do it and you go home and do another one and stuff like that. So that was really cool. Seattle was amazing. There's a lot of working musicians in Seattle, and everybody shares. It's like unlike LA where it's so cutthroat, man. Everybody, like Seattle, there was so much work. Like drummers would call, hey bro, do you want this gig here? It pays this, and then you get that. And everybody was really tight. Yeah, they had a thing called drummer lunch, and like check this out. Like imagine like, hey Jeremy, dude, are you coming out to drummer lunch? And you're sitting there at the table, and there's, you know, Michael Shreve from Santana, you know, Matt Cameron, and the guy from you know, Matt Cameron from Pearl Jam and Soundgarden, and then Bill Rieflin from REM, and blah blah blah, and just down the line and all this, and everybody. And at one point, Seattle, it was so cool. We all showed up to each other's shows. You know, you'd be playing, and you're like, oh hey, Alan of Yes, how's it going, buddy? You know, and freaking and because everybody just went to everybody's shows, and it was really cool. Tuesday night, we're like, hey, yeah, you know, we're like, hey, Michael from Santana, hey, Michael's jazz band is playing, you know, this lounge on Tuesday night. I mean, the dude who did the best drum solo ever in Woodstock, right? Is that So, you know, and you just sit there, and then and it was such a magical. I mean, what a once in a lifetime place and time to be in, right?
I love this support and a great drumming community. That's awesome. You mentioned earlier you got married again. How'd that happen? You got to share this.
Oh man. Well, check this out. Oh my gosh. So let me back up. So I, you know, after I went to Thailand, you know, so my divorce happened in 2016. And like I said, I was traveling, and I had my visa was only good for 3 months in Thailand. So I would go from Thailand, and then a place in Dallas, and then a place in Brooklyn, New York. I'd go 3 months. Now I was able to fund that because I figured out a way to be able to teach online, and I actually built a teacher training program, and I would teach other drummers how to be able to teach online. It was like $2,500, and I would give them a year's worth of curriculum and tell them how to set up and all that. And I only had a practice pad and sticks, like that's it. And so I bring that everywhere. So I was, you know, that's really all that I had to pay for. So I was doing all of that, and then I got tired of traveling so much. So I secured an apartment in Brooklyn. I was there for a year, and the last month I was there, I had went out on a date with this incredibly beautiful Haitian woman. And anybody who knows Haitian women, you know, they're very high end women. You know, they're very like, you know, oh yeah, they are. You're right. Yeah, yes, they are. So I met Caitlin. We went out. We had this wonderful date, man. Just this, and I was already going to walk across America. Like I was leaving in about 3 weeks, and she was so amazing that I said, "There's no way I'm going to tell her that I'm going to walk across America." This, you know, because a woman like this, I mean, what it's like? Oh, hey, you should date me. I have nothing except for a backpack, and I'm going to sleep under a bridge for the next month. Right? I'm like, yeah, right. You know, so we went out on one date, and I didn't know how much she really loved the date. And then I left, and I walked across America. Didn't even tell her. And so, you know, so she thought, well, you know, that date probably didn't go very well. And then she saw on social media about 7 months later, because it took me 6 months out to walk. And she was scrolling through social media, and she started seeing, through all the press and everything and the Joe Rogan thing about my wife. She was like, oh my God. And so she contacted me. COVID had just happened. And so she messaged me, like, she was like, Jeremy, man, I just saw your walk. Oh my God, that was amazing. I can't believe you did that. And I was thinking, like, oh man, that one, I can't even believe she's talking to me. So we were messaging through Instagram, and she said, hey, when are you coming back to New York? I'd love to, meet up again. And I said, well, I'm actually giving up my apartment because COVID. I would rather stay over here where it's less populated. So I said, hey, come out here and see me. She flew out here, and the rest is history, man. We fell deeply in love. And it was, listen, man, when I was walking, and I told you about how my walk after I had found God, I found the strength. And I would, I've always really been into manifesting. I would think about, like, I'd be practicing and like picturing myself playing in big stadiums, and all of a sudden that happened. And so I've had this ability to be able to do that. I think that comes from how I started playing drums, and pretending like I was talking, right? So I've had this ability to manifest. And so here I am, this empty shell, and I'm walking through the last half, of the last 1,500 miles of my walk. And I'm envisioning this new man who is strong, who has a great woman. And when I say a great woman, I don't want to disparage anything, but I needed a type of woman that wasn't in the heavy metal rock and roll culture. You understand what I'm saying, right?
I totally understand. Totally.
Yeah. And that was out of my wheelhouse, man. I was like, man, what if, just like this totally just high value woman. And so I was thinking about that. And when I was walking, like she was just like gorgeous. And I would envision her in my head. Like, I'm like, oh yeah, like a woman kind of like that woman that I went out on a date with that one time, like that, she's put together and she's a professional and she's like that. And I'm building these scenarios, man. And I would write it down in my journal. And oh my gosh, I always say I walked 3,100 miles, not to the finish line, not to the finish line, but to the starting line of my new life. So I walked 3,100 miles to begin my new life. And I stayed on the road. The road always provides. I stayed on that proverbial road. And everything that I thought about when I walked, and I was being filled up with this power and this vision, and I was talking out to God, it has come true. And it's just like gifted. And so her and we got married February 22nd, 2022. So we got married on 2/2/22. And so so this coming February will be our 2-year anniversary. And that's how that happened.
God bless you, man. That is a great story. And I knew you wanted to tell it because you're in love, as they say.
Dude, big time.
Haitian women are very French. So it's French culture. So they speak French, Creole, and English, almost all of them. And so she probably didn't wear jeans or sneakers. You probably had to teach her.
Yeah, man, you're exactly right. Oh yeah, man, it's been great. So like, first of all, her grandma brought her great grandma brought over 10 family members to the US, and they're all extremely successful. They live in Long Island and stuff. And they're all right there in the city. So when she came out here, Reading is the country, man. Like are, dude, we're in the country. So when she came out here, I had 30 family members calling. They're like, what, blah, blah, blah. And then they find out about my walk across America. And so I took her kayaking. I took her, I took her mountain climbing, and she's a country girl at heart, man.
Oh yeah.
She fell in love with it. And yeah, and same, she hadn't worn boots, and so, and so it's been great seeing her acclimate to this, and like, she never had chili, sloppy joes. She never had any of that. Yeah.
So you got brownie points, brother.
I love it. Oh
now
man.
Now you gotta learn the language a little bit. That's the next step.
Yeah. That's hard. I was just there. We were in New York just a couple of days ago. We left on last Thursday and just flew in last a day and a half ago. And we were there with the family. Yeah, and most of them speak Creole so heavily that every eighth or ninth word is in English, and so I'm asking my wife. I'm like, what what are they saying like that? But yeah, we would love, her and I are going to try to start having kids here pretty soon.
Nice.
And we would love to be able to have our kids speak Creole, stuff like that. Like that'd be amazing.
French and Creole. My nephew speaks French, Creole, and English, and fluently with the French because his mother Haitian as well, but she worked for the Canadian consulate, so her French had to be impeccable.
Wow.
But yeah, it's great when kids are multilingual. I know American Sign Language, and we stopped speaking Hungarian in my house right after my grandmother died. My dad just couldn't.
Wow.
He was so broken up about it, but you're on the right path, my friend.
Thanks, man.
You met somebody on the road who taught you that phrase, "The road provides." You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, man. So check it out. So you did your homework a little bit.
Yeah, I always do.
Yeah. All right, man. Yeah,
that's respect for my guests. If I don't do my homework, that's on me, man.
Thank you so much. I love that. Yeah, man. Check it out. So I trained for almost 4 months. Walking. So like I left New York, and I went to my best friend's house in Virginia, the one who recently just passed away. He and his family, they had a place there in Virginia. And I said, hey, it was January 1, 2019. And I said, I'm leaving in April, and I haven't walked 20 miles. Like I just haven't done it. So I need to practice. Right. So I went over to they let me stay at their place. They had a guest bedroom, and so I said, I'm just going to wake up every day and practice walking 20 miles. And so when I was in that town, I met this other super righteous dude, man. This guy named Cody, and we became really good friends. And he was this big time adventurer. He had ridden his bike across the U.S. a couple of times. And we were into similar stuff. He had a mace, and he's all tattooed, and he's into like weightlifting and stuff. So we'd work out all the time. And I told him about what I was doing, and he said, "Hey," he goes, "Hey, I told him right at the very last minute. I said, I'm actually going to walk up to Niagara Falls." He was like, "Dude, I want to walk the first week or so with you." He's like, "Are you cool with that?" And so he met me at the Brooklyn Bridge. He found his own way there and everything. And he had so I was carrying a 52-pound backpack. He had a 50-pound backpack and a 30-pound mace. And he shows up. And so we left, and every morning for an entire week, we would wake up and we'd swing the mace, and we'd do push-ups, and we're really into working out, and we were walking, and the second night out on the road, we just made it past New Jersey, and woke up in the morning, and this lady had walked by. We slept on these park benches. And this lady had walked by, and she had tucked $20 into each of our things. And I was like, whoa! I was like, dude, hey man, this lady gave us money, and I was kind of, I don't know, I didn't think the giving part of it. And Cody goes, oh, he goes, listen, man, he's like, I've hitchhiked everywhere. I've been across the Appalachian. He's like, ridden his bike across the US 2 or 3 times. He goes, when you're out on the road, man, when you're on a mission and when you're walking, he's like, you don't have to worry about everything is taken care of. He goes, bro, the road always provides. And I was like, what? And he goes, listen, man. He goes, listen. He goes, doing a walk and doing a travel, doing something like that. He goes, it mimics the natural law of life, and everything in life is already provided for. But is why we struggle and everything is because we're resistant to it. And when we're resistant to it, we break the natural flow of life. He's like, everything is provided for. So we get a weekend into the trip, and then he had a family emergency. His wife got in an accident. She was okay, but she got into an accident, and he's like, I have to go. So he left, and I'm there in the middle of the Pocono Mountains by myself. And Cody started walking down the road, and he gets about 100 feet away, and he turns around, and he's like, bro, remember, the road always provides, brother. He's like, the road always provides. And I watched him walk off into the distance. And at that point, I talk about in my book that's when I feel like I was like, wow, now I'm out here by myself now. Because it was almost like training wheels having him there with me. I had somebody to talk to. And now I'm out there in the Pocono Mountains. And then that very next day is when I fall off that 40-foot cliff and almost die. Right. And the rain comes down. I had my backpack on, and I was there's this windy road.
Yeah. And
was not meant for walking. And I had my backpack on, and I needed to pee so bad. I was about to explode. So I stepped over the guardrail and began to relieve myself. And the road goes like this. It just goes and breaks.
Yeah.
And mid pee, and then I just tumbled down like that, and I got all the way down to the road, and then it started raining, and then I slept in the woods that night. My tent was all ripped up. I made it to a campground 2 days later. The people at the campground they were like, dude, your tent is ripped. And I told him, I was like, I know, I'm walking to Niagara Falls, and I was all disheveled. Lady's like, here, I have a brand new one. I haven't even used this one. Road always provides, man. And then I could write an entire separate book about the good that I was actually thinking about doing after I published this book, called The Good Deeds Diary of America. 178 days is what I walked, and I had 100 good deeds dispelled upon me, man. I had complete strangers bring me to their house and cook me steak dinners. I had people give me money for hotels. I had people just day after day after day, the road provided. And it was incredible. It was like the only time I went hungry was when I got lost and almost died, which was 5 or 6 times. But yeah, people would stop off on the side of the road and give me Gatorade. They would give me hugs. Everything I needed was, I had quite a bit of social media following, and people were tracking where I was going, and I would get a message. Hey, some random dude. Hey, I see that you're walking through such and such part of Indiana or Illinois or whatever. I bought you a hotel. I'm like, just yeah, and the first couple. No, listen, that didn't happen once or twice. That happened dozens of times, right? Followers, like people they would like track where I was, and then I would go into the hotel, and they're like, "Oh yeah, your room was paid for," blah blah, and I'm like, "Whoa, man, yeah." And so that is something that when my wife and I, our brick and mortar school / drum shop is right in the heart of downtown Reading. and they're doing this whole revitalization of downtown. And when we went to go look at this place, it's very expensive because it's right in the middle of downtown. Everybody wanted this place. We signed the lease, and I instantly freaked out because I was like, "Oh my God!" Like, now I have to come up with this amount of money, and we just signed a lease for our house that we're renting, and I'm like, oh man, now how am I going to do this? And all of a sudden it dawned on me, oh yeah, the road will provide. We had no startup money that we did. There was, if you looked at it on paper, you would say, do not sign this lease. You're not ready to do your business. Do not. I had 9 students. 9 students is not going to pay for a brick and mortar place right downtown. Okay.
Yeah.
So signed the lease. Well, guess what? We're on our 13th month of being in this business, and we've grown month over month. And it just, so every 3 or 4 days, a situation will come up in my life, and I'll be like, ah! And then I got to remember, oh yeah, I have to let go, because everything is, hey man. And it's weird too, because it's almost like being on like a roller coaster, and you're jamming down that thing, and you just like take your seatbelt off, and you just like relax, and you're like, oh yeah, but you can feel everything about ready to spiral out of control and stuff, but you're like, oh, that's cool.
The road always provides.
Yeah, man. Yeah. So, and that's a reoccurring theme in my book is the road always provides. And my logo, the way the wandering monk, my fitness program, I say is the power is within you. My book is called Walking Home, and I had no idea the how profound that was, because I was telling people I'm walking home, right? Because I grew up in Reading, but I actually, through mastery and everything, I actually, by finding God, actually walked home when I, spiritually, and, physically, I had abandoned home, and then I walked back home, spiritually. And when I realized that I found home, that's when every bit of power came back to me, man. Dude, that's when I was like, after my walk, I'm like, what am I going to do now? I was like, well, last year being 49, it's like, well, what about bodybuilding? Well, you can't put on muscle when you're in your 50s. I have a before and after of when I started, and so I told my wife, I was like, man, I'm going to do something just extraordinary. I was like, I'm going to body. I've never bodybuilded in my life ever. I'm like, I'm going to go do a bodybuilding competition. Man, I've done 3. I've got 2 second places and 1 5th place, right? And went up there and just got absolutely shredded, man. And now I'm about to do my 4th bodybuilding competition at 50 years old. I've got abs, I've got the whole deal, and I just absolutely love it because I found the power is within me. I actually became a macro ninja. I wrote a 20-page ebook about macros and about diet and about like this, and then I integrate like walking and quietness and rhythm, and I put it all in this package. And so yeah. And so now I'm calling in health and wealth and all of this, and just being the best version of myself and giving that to the world, because that's, it's one thing when you build yourself up, but if you don't give it back to the world, then that's where I believe you could slip into darkness and all that. As long as I give everything that I build up, everything that I have, as long as I give that back into the world, that's actually what I was called to do, to just continually serve. You see what I'm saying? Absolutely,
100%. Ladies and gentlemen, Jeremy Schulz, the Wandering Monk, the way of the Wandering Monk. Please go to beatsfromthecore.com. Your book's coming out. It's called Walking Home. Correct? Is that the name of the title?
Yeah. Yeah, they could go to beatsfromthecore.com. That is my drum school. They can also go to wayofthewanderingmonk.com. That is my that's my mindset and fitness program. But is where all the magic happens, and the writings and the inspiration. If you I'm very active on Instagram. They can please go follow Way of the Wandering Monk on Instagram and Twitter, and also Beats from the Core on Instagram, and yeah, they and I do a lot of like cross sharing stuff like that. The people who want to see the drums and what we're doing here, they can see a lot of that journey, Beats from the Core, and then Way of the Wandering Monk, mindset and fitness, and just really, yeah, I write a lot of really profound things that came to me during my walk through that. And then the book is going to be called Way of the Wandering Monk Walking Home. That's going to be called that's what the book is going to be called.
When is that all out? Is that coming out soon?
I'm hoping that the book will be out and ready for sale in before April.
Nice. Good.
Yeah.
We're going to keep track of you, my friend. We'll have you back on when the book comes out. But thank you for being on Awaken Nation, my friend. Thank you.
Dude, you know what? You were man, you're a gem, dude. Thank you so much. It was such a pleasure speaking with you, man. You're very easy to talk to, and you're a fellow drummer, so you understand the
I get you.
connection. Yeah,
I get you, man.
Right, man. And also, thank you to Damon Lemby. Something that guy is doing that I just want to bring really quick attention to, that I love is that guy. He's all about leadership, and he's all about that's his whole business. And for somebody to be in that and to embody that, I think is extraordinary, because leaders, in my view, true leaders are all about the tide rises all ships, and
Right.
that guy selflessly plugs so many people, and he has no monetary reason to. He's just like, oh my gosh, check out this guy, and he's done and he doesn't just do it with me. I see him do that all the time, and I just want to say that I appreciate it, and I feel like it's a lesson that we can all look and just be like, man, that is how to be. I really appreciate him.
I've found a new friend in Damon, because he reaches out. I gave him the footage for the show. I told him some of my goals, and he immediately reciprocated with 2-3 guests already. And I'm like, this guy is amazing. He is a leader. So
he really is. What an honor we are to meet him. And I look at dudes like that, and like my new goal in life isn't, I've done the touring, I've done all of that. I actually kind of really don't care about just for me personally, about playing music anymore. My whole deal is to become this fantastic leader, and to become this fantastic husband, and just all around like that. And so I look at guys like that, and I'm like, oh, that's a great source of inspiration. So that's I put him up there. So
the road provides, brother.
Yeah, road provides. Thank you.
Before I let you go, I usually do a lightning round with 3 questions. If you have time to stick around, I'm going to ask you a deeper dive, so my audience, my fans, your fans can get to know you better. Is there anything in your life, this is question number 1, is there anything in your life that you love to do that no one knows that you love to do?
Oh man, is there anything in my life that I love to do that nobody knows? Well, yeah, a lot. It all boils down to, I love stuff that takes slow, long, arduous processes. almost doesn't matter what it is. But I love, like, I love to cook. You know, back when I used to drink beers or whatever, I don't anymore. I loved making my own beer. It's a long, arduous process. You know, you
Right.
can make your own wine, right? Right. That's practicing drums, right? You know, oh yeah, a 6-stroke roll. Nobody ever's like, you know, single, double, double, single, right? You've months and months and months, and then put that like anything that has a long, arduous process. That's why in my cardio, I prefer walking over running. That's why I love bodybuilding, you know, because anything that I'm doing right now, it's only going to have its little tiny effects in 1 year, and then
Yeah.
another year later. So anything thing like that is like a slow, arduous, long process. I love throwing knives. I'm super badass at it, and I will go through. We'll walk through the forest, and I'll throw a knife, and that's a process that this you do it over and over and over and over, and everything like that. Anything that is slow and arduous is that's where I reside.
You and I have that in common. My dad taught me that that discipline every single day that leads to
Yeah.
a bigger goal that may take years to achieve.
Right.
Yeah, I get that. Totally get it, man.
Very
My
nice.
second question I have is, do you have a favorite memory?
Do I have a favorite memory? Ooh, I do, and a lot of them are from my raising my stepson. He was. I never knew that 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 love that deep existed until I never wanted kids or anything like that. And then when I was introduced to him, one of my favorite memories was him and my buddy John that had passed away. I remember taking Dakota was just he was, you know, just he was like one, and I remember uh, bringing him with me to a recording session, and him and had like this like a little basket thing, and he was underneath of my throne with these headphones on, falling asleep. And I'm sitting there like that, and then I get paid, and then I'd go to another recording studio, and he's just sitting there like that, and then maybe he'd wake up, and I'd give him some crackers or whatever, and we'd do that, and then like fast forward, you know, playing like a festival, and he had like his little tent back there that he would always fall asleep right behind my throne, and it was so cool because it was like, you know, yeah,
You're right
yeah, that's
next
some
to
of my
dad.
favorite memories. Yeah,
That's phenomenal.
yeah.
That is a beautiful story. My final question um, is there anything that really pisses you off?
Is there anything that really pisses me off?
Yeah.
You know, yeah, like it's hard for me to actually get mad and worked up nowadays, especially after going through my walk and really like losing everything and coming back. I wake up with a sense of gratitude more so than I think the average person. You know, because you know having a whole bunch of stuff and then losing it and then being able to regain everything. My perspective on it on everything is like, dude, you think this situation is bad? It's like, oh, but you know, I walked until the skin on the bottom of my feet came completely off after walking 9 days through the rain in Missouri, and when I completely wet. And so I took my socks off and my skin came off. And then when it grew back, there was cracks and everything in my feet, and my socks would fill up with blood while I walked with a 50-pound thing. So that and that amount of pain and everything was a million was I would feel that a million times over rather than the amount of pain that I had experienced prior to that. So that amount of pain was laughable to me. I was like, this is funny. So stuff to get me upset. But the things that I don't like are 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 people living below their God-given potential. It was so my buddy who passed away last year. Unfortunately, he succumbed to his addiction to his drinking, and the thing of it was, it was so preventable. And I remember talking to him over on the phone and just being like, dude, listen, you got kids, you got a beautiful family. We're at a point now where we can get ahead of this. We can get you on a good diet. We can stop this, and so I see a lot of people living in complacency. And I think that is something that I wouldn't say that really pisses me off, but it physically hurts my heart, because it can end like that. And it most likely will end like that. Right. So every second of every day is such an urgency to me. It's almost like it burns in the middle of my chest. And I just want to share that with people, and the people that know that and are, complacent and just wallowing in that. That is what really just irks me, because, because once it's too late, it's too late. There's no going back.
That is the truth. Very profound, my friend. Very profound. Jeremy Schulz, once again, thank you for being on Awakened Nation. Reach out, everybody. The Wandering Monk. His book's coming out soon. And go to beatsfromthecore.com. Jeremy, once again, thank you for being on the show.
Hey, man. Thank you so much. It was my pleasure. Thank you for anybody who made it this far, who's still listening. Yeah, dude, thank you so much. Reach out to me, man. I love meeting people. So thanks.
You bet, man. Hey, everybody, tune in next week. Until then, take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for being a big part of the Awakened Nation movement. This is how you can help me and our extraordinary guests. If you guys enjoyed this episode, please share it out on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And let's grow this movement by word of mouth. Our success will be because of you. Thank you, and see you next week.